Hey, so in this video, you're going to watch me make not one, but two recipes. That's because both these recipes require a lot of sitting and doing nothing. So I figured you didn't want to just see me sit there and do nothing. We're going to make pulled pork and we're going to make chicken stock. Not because we're going to have them together, but because I need chicken stock to make other stuff in the future. Ooh, surprise. So to make my pulled pork, I need the actual pork thing, but more importantly, equally importantly, I need the rub to put it on. And this is my rub jar, and you can see that I have almost nothing left. So I actually have to make more rub for today. So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm just going to kind of do that. So that's going to help me out and when I'm making my rub, so I can all put it into that jar and I don't make a mess everywhere like I normally do. How do we make this? You probably can see I had tons of spices here. This actual rub that I got, this was a gift to me. But since I've started using it, I've kind of modified it, made it my own. I'm hoping that if you take my kind of rub recipe, you can take it, you can kind of play around with it, make it spicier or make it sweeter, whatever you want. But most rubs usually start off, for me at least, with paprika. So this is a whole whack of paprika. How much am I going to use? You can't see from here. This is a quarter cup. Alright, so that goes in just like that. Next thing I like onion powder in mine. I like a lot of onion powder actually. So I'm going to take this, and I'm not going to use a quarter cup. I'm actually going to use 1/8 of a cup. It's actually a lot of onion powder if you think about it. I'm going to fill the rest of this with black pepper, freshly ground. It takes a while. Okay, I'm bored of this now. I'm just gonna throw this in. And that's not nearly enough black powder. It's not nearly as much black pepper as I normally want in my my rub. So I'm gonna come back, put some more in later. But like I said, I got bored. Next, salt. Salt. So you need. I like to use 2 tablespoons. So this is a tablespoon. 1, 2. Okay, so I like a little bit of spice on mine. How spicy you want yours is completely up to you. But I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, 1 tisp of cayenne pepper. Any more than that and it gets kind of unruly. I guess you could use like dried chili flakes, but if you have like big chunks like that, it's not really a nice rub. You need something kind of finely ground. This is mustard powder. I like this because it gives it kind of, I don't know, not spice, but like gives it a nice boldness, I guess. 1 teaspoon. Last thing, I like to put like a little secret, I don't know, a flavor accent. I think I used that word last time. So your flavor accent could be cinnamon again. It could be garlic powder, but I actually like a little bit of oregano in mine. So this is 1 teaspoon that I'm just kind of grinding up in my hand. And toss that right in. Gives it kind of like a nice Italian-esque type flavor, and it's really aromatic, which I really, really like. Because I like my house to smell delicious when I'm making pulled pork. The last thing I need to do, I need the rest of the black pepper. We are done. Throw that away, put the lid on this, and we just kind of make sure it's all shaken up, all mixed in. So it's a nice little rub. There we go. And that's enough rub for probably 2 pulled porks. So I actually kind of like that. Push that all to the side. Let's grab our meat. So what kind of cut are you looking for if you're doing a pulled pork? You're looking for... you can't see it from here. This is a pork shoulder. Might also be called a butt. Depends. Either way, you're looking for a piece of meat that's really big and has a lot of like untrimmed fat on the top. That's what makes kind of like that sauce that you see on pulled pork. Oh, it's beautiful. If you see a piece of meat with the fat trimmed off, stay away. Do not make it a pulled pork. You will end up getting like dry strands of meat, and no one wants that. I also need like a vessel to keep this in. So I'm going to use what I'm going to cook it in. This is my nice Corningware thing. I like to put this in my oven all the time. So I'm going to take this out. Perfect. Left hand's for meat. And you can see like all this nice fat that's on the top of it. So first thing I need to do, take some of my spice, and I'm not going to go easy on it. The spice just goes right over top. Since I'm talking about rubs anyways, you probably noticed I don't put any sugar in my rub. That's weird. Most rubs that I look up and read about, they like to put brown sugar usually in it. I stay clear from it. I think the meat tastes good enough as it is. It doesn't need sweetness. But if you want sweetness in yours, by all means, grab some brown sugar or whatever you're going to use for your rub and put it on. But for me, don't eat it. Perfect. You can see that's nice and coated and dusted. Like I said, there's enough for 2 pulled porks. Last thing I'm going to do, before this can go in the oven tomorrow, I need to score the fat. And that's going to help me. That's going to help the juice of the fat kind of trickle in and baste the meat as it goes, because it's got to cook for a really, really long time. So I'm taking my trusty chef's knife, which is my sharpest knife and my most comfortable knife, and I'm just going to go right down the end. And I'm going to cut the fat. And really I'm just making like a checker pattern. Don't need to be fancy about it. Perfect. And you can see that it's just nice, cut down. There's no real math to it. That's all I need. This is going to get covered. And this sits in the fridge overnight. And we're done. Gotta wash my hands. And that's it. That's a pulled pork, at least step 1 done. So all we need to do is go to sleep, wake up. I'm gonna finish off with that pulled pork, and then you're gonna watch me make some chicken stock. It's coffee time. So, the pulled pork has been sitting in the fridge all night, which means I need to pull it out, and we're gonna give it one last rub of our spice. Here it is right here, looking pretty good. It's gonna get one last rub of this stuff. And actually, before I start touching raw meat, I'm gonna turn my oven on. It's a nice balmy 275. You can go a little bit lower if you want, but I don't like waiting more than like 7 hours for my pulled pork. Just gonna give it one last coating, one last rub down. Again, be generous with it. Perfect, that's it. This is done. That's gonna go in the oven once it preheats for about 7 to 9 hours. I used to do it for 8 hours, then I realized it came out kind of on the dry side. So when you do this, play around with your oven. I like 7.5 hours for mine. That was my sweet spot after I started playing around with it for a bit. Yours might actually be 8 hours, it might be 8.5. It depends on your oven. Give it a try though, see what happens. Alright, so like I promised, this is my stock video. We are going to make chicken stock. What you need to make chicken stock is really, really simple. You need a water filter. A lot of people make their stock with tap water, but I don't like that. I like my stock to be as clean as possible. So this cold water goes right into my pot. This pot is not good for stock. It's not a stock pot. It's the best I have though, so I'm going to use it. If you have a stock pot, like a really tall one, use that. It's going to make your life so much easier. My stocks could be better if I had a stock pot, but I don't, so that's the best we have. What are you going to do? You're going to need celery for your stock and carrots. You're also going to need an onion, like that, and I like garlic with mine. I'll handle things like spices and stuff later on. Okay, so we're just going to chop up these veggies so that they can go into the stock. So I like to use 2, maybe 3 stalks of celery, depending on how much room there is in there. Gonna need some carrots. Let's go with 2 or 3 carrots. But again, depends on how much room I'm going to have in there. Notice that I'm chopping these really, really big because if you make them really small, they're basically going to disintegrate inside your stock, and that's not good. You don't want disintegrated celery in your soup. Next, this onion. This one I'm just going to cut to quarters. Nothing fancy about this. Good. And then garlic. Some people don't put garlic in their stock. I don't really understand that. That doesn't make sense to me. Garlic is just always so good. Why would you not use it? So I'm going to use 3 large cloves of garlic. And again, I'm not going to dice these or anything. I'm just going to take the skin off and just throw them in as is. Okay, so everything's been chopped up. My oven is preheated. So this guy is going to come into here. I'm going to set my timer to 7.5 hours. I am not going to look at that thing for 7.5 hours. It just has to sit there, and I can really do nothing about it. So that's pulled pork done. I mean, that's it. On the stew. So I'm going to take all my veggies that I have. I'm going to throw them right in. And I almost forgot the most important thing. Don't ask me why I was behind the camera. But this is actually the chicken carcass. This has to go into there. This is a frozen one that I had from dinner probably last week or so. So it's frozen. Can't really go into the stock like that. So now we wait. Okay, so nice and unthawed. Unthawed's not a word. So this has just to go in here. Nothing fancy about it. So then we have to put spices into it. So as far as spices go, these are black peppercorns. I like to throw a couple in there. This is rosemary. Rosemary goes great with chicken. You can never go wrong with rosemary and chicken. 2 bay leaves. You probably know that I love bay leaves. And lastly, this is actually kind of important. I'm going to put in a splash of vinegar in there. The reason is because in my stock, everything has to kind of break down. And even though water is really good at dissolving stuff, okay, we're switching back to low tech here for a second. This is my phone again, but I wanted to show you like a real close-up of the actual cooking. So this is what it looks like right now. This is a nice little simmer, and it's gonna simmer for a really, really long time. But as I pull out a spoon, here's what I want you to notice. Can you see like this gross scum that's kind of accumulating? I think the actual culinary term for this is scum, and you don't want it. It tastes gross. So what I need to do is skim the top of it, like this, and I need to do this probably twice more, once every hour, 2 more times. After that, the scum should no longer accumulate. What is the scum? It's kind of, they're the proteins that are coming out of the bones, and it's very similar to the scum you see on beaches, which is just kind of proteins from animals living in there. So yeah, you just got to remove it. Also, since you're this close, you can quickly see why I don't like making stock in this, or why it's not the best option. You can see that I have a really wide kind of mouth here, which means tons of surface area, which means my water is going to evaporate very quickly out of this, versus a very tall stock pot. What this means is that I need to replace the water probably 3 or 4 times throughout the cooking process, which is not ideal. In a stock pot, you maybe have to refill it once. Alright, I think that's good enough for now. I'm going to do that twice more, and that's it. So it's been about 1.5 hours or so, and the water in my stock has kind of all evaporated out. So I'm going to add in more water, Still looks kind of watery-ish, but we'll see what it looks like in the end. By the way, I never actually said how long I need to boil this or simmer this for. Don't go less than 4 hours. 4 hours doesn't make a very good stock. 6 hours is pretty good. 8 hours though, that's what I like to do. So my pulled pork takes 7.5 hours. My stock takes 8 hours. So this is actually a really nice Sunday for me. So it's been about 6 hours and 45 minutes, just under 7 hours. And I'm getting kind of sick and tired of waiting for this stock to finish. So it should be good to go. What I usually do to see if it's good is I taste it. It's really hot. It tastes like really chickeny, I guess, is the way to describe it. Another way you can check to see if it's done, you just kind of reach in there and grab a bone. And since we're trying to get all the bones, proteins kind of broken down and into the soup, should be able just to break it off like that. It's hot. So yeah, those bones are pretty much done. They've given up everything they can. So I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to be transferring it into a Tupperware container. So I need to somehow transfer that really, really hot stuff into this Tupperware. So first, it's in the sink because it's going to make a mess. Second, this is not a strainer. I wish I had a strainer. Instead, I'm going to use this, which is actually a grease splatter type of thing. And I'm going to put that over top of my Tupperware container because I'm creative like that. My crock pot is crazy hot, so I'm going to put some oven mitts on and take it off the heat, and I'm going to pour it right into that Tupperware. And whenever too much stuff kind of accumulates onto my strainer, makeshift strainer, I just toss it. And I'm going to keep doing this until it finally finishes. There's still a lot more liquid left in this, but it's kind of being dammed up by all the junk that's in here. So I'm going to take my tongs again, I'm just going to toss it all. Trust me when I say you don't want to eat the stuff that's left in there, because there's no flavor left. It's all just kind of bland, I don't know, not even flesh. It's just bland material. Okay, so I have this Tupperware full of crazy, crazy hot broth. But I can't close it up, put it in the fridge just yet. I need to bring this down at least a little bit in temperature-wise, otherwise it's going to melt everything in my fridge. I don't really want to add water to it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a water bottle that I froze, and I'm going to just put it right in there, like that. It's like a giant ice cube. I'm going to let that sit for at least 2 to 3 minutes, so it can at least come to like almost room temperature. I'm going to close it up, put it in the fridge, and then there's one more part to this that I have to do tomorrow. Okay, you can see my water bottle has melted, and it is now gross and slimy, so I'll deal with that later. But I'm going to put a lid right over top of my stock, just like that, and that's going to go in the fridge. So that's it for stock. Stock's really easy to make. Next, pulled pork. So I still have to wait 1 more hour, but in an hour I'm going to pull out that pulled pork, and you're going to see what it looks like. Okay, so my oven just beeped, which means pulled pork is done. So I'm going to grab a trivet, get some gloves. There are my gloves. Let's take a look. And there we go. Hey, not bad. So if I were to pull this apart right now, all the juices inside would just kind of come out, and it'd make it like a really nice sauce kind of sitting at the bottom, but I like the sauce in the meat, not pooled around it. So that has to sit for, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'll set a timer, I'll turn the stove off, I'm going to throw a lid over top of it just so it doesn't freeze to death, and in 20 minutes I'll pull it apart and we'll see what it looks like. This has sat around for a while now. You're going to grab 2 forks, and I'm just going to start going at it. You know you've done a good job when the meat just kind of falls apart. So I used to have this problem where I would overcook my pulled pork, and what would happen is I'd get really dry meat at the end of it. If that happens, and it does, it'll happen to you because, you know, if you've never done it before, you're bound to make some mistakes here and there. If it happens to you, grab a little bit of cider vinegar and put maybe a tablespoon in, and then just mix it around with the meat. It'll give it like a nice, almost like a sauce when it starts mixing with the juices that are all in here already. Alright, so here is what it looks like now that it's all pulled apart. Ooh. This big bone right in here, I'm just going to take that out. If you have a dog, you can give it to the dog. Or if you're making stock later on, you can actually use that in stock soup. Me, I like to stick with one animal per broth, but that's just me. Now here's the best part. Ask anyone who makes pulled pork. The best part is that part of fat right on the top. It's all nice and like crispy and tasty. Oh, it's good. It's real good. No sauce, no sugar. This is like what you want. This is what you need. I'm probably gonna eat a lot more of this. More than I probably should tonight, but that's okay. Anyways, stock, pulled pork. Looks really nice. The amount of work I actually put into it, very, very little. Good morning. So, it is the third day, which means the stock has set up in the fridge overnight. When your stock has set up, you'll know because you're going to see a whole bunch of crap on the top of it. Now, actually, this batch of stock I made is not the best because all that crap on top it's all the chicken fat that came out of it. It's actually called schmaltz. And I don't want it. This is something you actually could save and use in like soups or stir fries. It's actually really valuable. French chefs love it. Me, not so much. So actually, I'm gonna get rid of it because I don't know any recipes that use it. Okay, that's it. So my stock is now ready, but I actually don't want to put it in the freezer like this because if I do, next time I use it, I have to use all, 6 cups of it. So I'm gonna portion it out a little bit. So this is a cup, and I'm gonna put 1, 2, 3. So that's about 4 cups in this one, which leaves about a cup and a half in this one. So that's pretty good. So what are you gonna do with the stock now? Yeah, you could make soup. You could make like chicken soup with it, which would be really, really good. You could make butternut squash soup, which is also really good. But what I plan on doing with this one is probably making a beef stew. Ooh. But maybe we'll see that later on. Anyways, that's pulled pork, that's chicken stock. Thanks for watching. I will see you later.